And now let's get more about the political analysis on this verdict from Eugene Daniels, Politico White House correspondent and Playbook co-author, and Sabrina Siddiqui, White House reporter for the Wall Street Journal. It's good to see you guys. Eugene, what does this mean for the 2024 campaign? Do you see this having an impact?
Yeah, one thing that's been kind of clear is that a lot of this feels baked in and has felt baked in for a long time. I think we don't know, but what we've seen in polling is that voters have seen Hunter's issues as Hunter's issues, right? You had this attempt by Republicans to tie what Hunter Biden's his foreign business dealings, this case even, to President Biden. They have been unable to do that. They have even admitted that, been able to, especially convincing voters of that. So it's unlikely to blow back on President Biden. That's exactly how folks in the White House feel, folks in the Biden campaign and Biden world writ large feel at this moment. But this is a volatile election. And so, anything can change a couple of voters' minds. But with that said, most voters' minds in this election, in this world we live in, are kind of already made up, right? It's hard to find voters who don't already have a feeling about Joe Biden, despite his son, and Donald Trump, despite his own convictions, right? And so those kinds of things may happen on the edges, but it doesn't seem like it's going to have a huge swath of changes to this election.
I do wonder, though, Sabrina, if it could give Joe Biden a boost of people feeling some kind of empathy related to his situation. Again, we've talked about how so many families experience the impacts of drug addiction, right, or alcoholism. And so they may find some, I guess, shared feeling or emotion when it comes to this particular issue in this verdict. We've also talked about how Republicans continue to claim that there's this two-tier justice system, and how does that argument, right, square with what just happened today?
Well, as you point out, this is obviously a deeply personal issue for President Biden as he seeks re-election. And in his written statement reacting to the verdict, he did talk about how so many families have loved ones who have battled addiction. And, he and First Lady Jill Biden, they stand by their son. They're so proud of his journey as he's gone through recovery. And there are a lot of American families who probably will empathize with that. Now, to your other point, Republicans are clearly trying to use this as a counterattack to the criminal charges against former President Trump. Now, there is an obvious difference between the charges against Trump, the former president who is himself on the ballot, who is seeking a return to the White House and was convicted, of course, in the hush money trial. And, the charges against Hunter Biden, who is a private citizen. He's not held any role in his father's administration. So, I think that's part of why you haven't seen as much movement in the polls when it comes to Hunter and these legal challenges that he's faced. What we've seen in the polling more broadly is that a majority of Americans say that, the Hunter Biden verdict, or they had said this prior to the verdict, that it would not impact their vote in November. Now, among this percentage of voters who did say that they would be less likely to vote for President Biden based on his son's legal problems, most of those were Republicans. So there is a question as to whether or not they would have voted for President Biden either way. But of course, it's a challenging issue for the president. It does take away from the issues he wants to focus on. And, I think that probably he will speak to it mostly in a personal capacity as a father. And we've seen him be very careful not to weigh in on the justice system itself in a bid to also draw a contrast with his opponent, Trump.
All right, Sabrina Siddiqui, it's good to see you. Thank you so much. Our thanks to Eugene Daniels as well.